right, well, Manso and Clay Ferraro, your Miami Sports Pod once again, following another Dolphins victory to improve to 5-3, and Clay following the play of Tua Tagovailoa throwing for 382 yards. The greatest show on turf, on grass, on I don't know what. Right now, the Dolphins' offense is clicking. Now, the defense wasn't so great, but we'll get to that in a moment. But your initial thoughts on Miami's win and improving to 5-3?
Well, obviously, it shows the importance of Tua Tagovailoa to this offense. But the one thing that I walked away saying is, man, Tyreek Hill's unreal. He just makes everybody better. He makes everything better. And, you know, I think you appreciated him from afar watching what he did in Kansas City. And yet I think there was always this feeling of, okay, well, is he this good in general? Is he this good because he's got Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and just everything that went into that Kansas City offense? And then he gets here and it's like, nah, you know what? He's just that good. And again, Tua deserves a ton of credit. Jaylen Waddle deserves a ton of credit. Mike McDaniel, everybody, it's a team effort. I get all that. Tyreek Hill just makes everything different. And it's amazing what one player can do.
What's amazing to me too, Clay, is that we saw him for years. It's not like he's an unproven commodity. I mean, he was already one of the best players in the NFL. That's why you went out, you got him, and you spent all the money and you know the move to make him in the first place to get him over here. But I think the contested catches and the big plays in traffic or what have, maybe I was just blinded by the fact that the Chiefs were so much fun to watch and him running in space. And by the way, he runs in plenty of space in this offense as well, with Tua finding him and him, you know, showing off that speed. But the contested catches, the way his body takes a pounding. I mean, look, he's not a big guy, but he's a strong guy and he's a tough guy. He made a play on Sunday against the Lions where he went up on a throw by Tua, immediately got hit, kind of upended, got right back up, and he's made a ton of those catches this year. He's on pace, as crazy as this sounds, to have a 2,000-yard season. And maybe he wasn't so crazy when he said that Tua is the most accurate passer in the NFL, and everybody thought he was nuts or just trying to basically say, you know, try to give Tua confidence when no one else will. He doesn't seem so crazy now in what he thinks of Tua and obviously in his production.
Yeah, blown away by him. And the thing that I took away, too, at the end of that game was, you know, the conventional line of thinking is, oh, you run the football to salt away the clock and to, you know, go in your 4-minute offense.
Not with this team.
It was two big passes to Tyreek Hill, one of them on a first down, one of them on a third down that really put this ball game away. And, you know, I think sometimes in football, coaches can overthink things. And
like handing it to Chase Edmonds.
Yeah.
Like
well, I mean,
for any reason.
But no, seriously, that's part of the evolution of being a head coach is, okay, sometimes recognizing when maybe something wasn't the best idea. I go back to last year's Super Bowl. You know, Sean McVay spent 3.5 quarters trying to like dial up all these different things. And finally, when nothing was working, he was like, you know what? Just forget it. Just give the ball to Cooper Kupp and get out of his way. And he won them the Super Bowl. And, you know, I feel like what the Dolphins did at the end of the game against Detroit was forget it. Let's just get the ball in the hands of our best player. And we obviously have the quintessential point guard at quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa to get him the football and got it to him accurately. There was one of them, man, it was the Lions defensive back jumped up and it looked like he may have tipped the ball. And if he didn't, he was like a centimeter. But that's where the ball had to be. And it was right. It dropped it in a bucket right where Tyreek could catch it on the sideline. When you're a coach, sometimes you overthink things, and when you just kind of step back, it's never a bad idea to put the ball in the hands of your best players, and that's what the Dolphins did.
I think in the last couple of weeks, what's become evident, and with Tua healthy, is that the only 3 people I feel comfortable with, and I know Mike Gesicki's made some plays, and, you know, I get that Sherfield has made some plays too when you give him a chance, but in big moments of the game, which is pretty much most of the game, given how the Dolphins defense has played of late. But in big moments in the game, I want the ball either handed off to Raheem Mostert or you pass to Jaylen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. And let's, you know, when you look at that, you look at the plays they're making, Clay. I mean, Tua right now looks as comfortable as he's ever looked. And it drives me crazy when people, you and I have had the debate about whether he's a special quarterback, an elite in the guy. And I think, you know, we're beyond that. He obviously is. But I think too many people like to say, like, well, anybody can throw to Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. Well, it's not that easy. I mean, there are plays he has to make, and his accuracy, going back to what Hill said about him in the offseason, has been phenomenal, and it goes to the point you just made. Yes, it is easy for an NFL quarterback to throw to wide open receivers. That's not exactly breaking news. I mean, any NFL quarterback that is a competent starting quarterback can usually hit wide open receivers. It's very rare you have them, and it's the beauty of this offense. Give Mike McDaniel credit. Obviously, the talent in Hill, Waddle. But Clay, Tua is making precision passes. And a lot of times you'll really look at a play, right? Where Tua makes a pass and initially you think maybe he threw it a little behind the receiver, right? But then you watch the replay and you say, no, he didn't throw it behind the receiver. He threw it in the one spot where the defender couldn't get to it, because if he throws it right to the receiver, there's a defender there that can either deflect it or have a chance to intercept it. His anticipation on those throws, his ability to find those pockets, look, the touchdown to Gesicki is another example. That ball, Gesicki was open, right? As far as defenders in the end zone. But when you talk about the play, the linebackers out in front, if Tua throws it at a straight angle to Gesicki and doesn't put a little air under it, it probably gets deflected. Went just above the defender for a touchdown. And by the way, how about Dolphins history with the numbers Tua's putting up right now? No quarterback since that guy, Dan Marino, and love to see Dan the man.
Well, you timed that well.
I set that one up. By the way, thank you, Dolphins, for those pictures, Miami Dolphins, because they give us those pictures and that look of what they're doing. But with Tua, 382 yards, 3 touchdowns. I don't think we can say enough about his accuracy, his anticipation. Clay, he's using the weapons to the best of his ability, and he's having a spectacular season. When he plays, they win. It's that simple.
Yeah, and I want to go back to what you said about, hey, anybody can throw it to an open receiver. Well, Tua makes him look more open than most quarterbacks would. And that's timing. That's anticipation. That's recognizing at the line of scrimmage that Tyreek Hill won immediately and he's going to be open, or Jaylen Waddle beat his man off the line. He's going to be open pretty much immediately. So at what point do I release the football to give him the most space to run and get yak? I mean, those are the types of things those are the differences, Will, between like a top 5, top 10 NFL quarterback and like an Andy Dalton.
Which he is, by the way, which he finally is, I think. I think
when he's healthy, and look, I mean, we don't need to have this debate anymore. I think it's been settled that the only question I have about him moving forward in his career at all is
durability,
protecting himself. And by the way, on Sunday
he slid.
He slid.
Slid right into those.
There was another play.
Beautiful.
And we didn't even talk about this, but there was another play. It was the third and I want to say it was 3rd and 8. And there was a formation penalty, a procedure penalty, but it was one of those where it wasn't a dead ball penalty, so the play kept going. And I think he was running up, and the center didn't realize, Connor Williams didn't realize that he was changing a protection call or something. Mm-hmm. And so Williams snapped it, and Tua gets the ball, and like immediately he recognizes, we're in scramble drill mode. And what he did, Will, and this is with the game on the line, he threw the ball away. He rolled out for like 2 steps, and then he stopped. He realized
that was very late in the game.
Working. I mean, it was basically, all right, even if I run for the first down here, we're going to be in 3rd and 13. So he just threw the ball away, and they got 4th and 8, and they punted the football. So it's not just sliding. And if we're going to be critical of him for not protecting himself, I want to praise him when he does. It was
it was an important play. It was important to see.
That play was the one where it was like, maybe he's getting it now. Maybe he's understanding, because the competitor in you, it's like, I want to get this, even if I want a chance at 3rd and 13. I don't want to punt the ball away, but it was, just chuck it out of bounds, take the penalty or decline the penalty, punt the ball, and live to play another down.
I think too, when you talk about Waddle and Hill, and this was something to discuss on social media as well. And I think, anybody who in our age range remembers the days of the Marks brothers. And I know when I moved here to South Florida, it was the pinnacle of Dan Marino and Mark Duper and Mark Clayton. But the Tua to Waddle and Hill connection, right, is having a historic season, and I say Tua Waddle, and I need to add Hill into that. I mean, obviously I missed on Hill on that one.
We knew what you meant.
So no, but I mean, it's the reality that what these guys are doing, is just, you're talking about a historic season, plays that you just never, combinations of guys. I mentioned the Hill potentially getting 2,000 yards. Well, Waddle is right there having a massive season to an 100 catch season last year, as a follow-up. And when you look at that, you think to yourself, Clay, I don't know of any other in recent history. Like, let's go through the books, right? I'd say Marx Brothers, but Marx Brothers is the 80s, and that's just Dolphins history. But I just mean the NFL. There we go. Waddle Hill combo is having it's a historic season. I think what we're seeing is what would put it on par. You mentioned to me as we were prepping the old Rams and Greatest Show on Turf with Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. I mean, where else could you go with this combination? It's hard to find a better combo than this right now in recent NFL history.
Well, so this is courtesy of Brett Eisen with the Dolphins, and he's the one that had the top 5. So the record that Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle have beaten, which, by the way, for the record, since we've got we're on a podcast, so we can waste a bunch of time, but 1,688 yards over 8 games for that duo. That's first all time. Breaking the record set by 2 teams, the 2014 Broncos with, remember, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And that duo, Demaryius Thomas, was just incredible that year. I mean, just getting the ball in space and he'd run 80 yards. But then the one that stood out to me was, and they're on this list twice because they were second and fourth, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt, the Greatest Show on Turf, 2000 and 2003. And that's what this Dolphins team is doing. And the 5th team on the list was the Bucs in 2019 with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. But this is the thing to me, Will. It's, you can tell me, oh, well, the NFL is different now and, more of a passing league, whatever.
Which is true.
No, there's no other duo going back that has this many, 20 years we're talking. You have to go back 22 years. So even as the league has evolved into more of a passing league, the record that these guys have now broken is 22 years old and 8 years old when you go back to the 2014 Broncos. Like, this is not, the game has changed so much. It's easier to do this now. No, this is 2 guys that are doing something that is unprecedented. And by the way, Will, they've done it with only 5 games of Tua at full strength, playing the full game. So what happens if you're able to keep Tua healthy for the rest of this year? We're in the softer part of the schedule now. I mean, you could really see these numbers not just stay on this trajectory, but even get better. And that's what Tyreek Hill said after the game. He said, we think that we can be light years better because we're still not doing the little things right. And it's stuff that maybe we don't notice, but what he was saying is we need to be, Tua said communication and getting the play calls set and getting it in quickly. And Tyreek Hill said, we have to be lined up quickly. So, like, when they get more comfortable with one another, and
that's a scary thought.
Tua's able to stay healthy, and this chemistry continues to build throughout the year, man. This could be the low water mark for these guys. As crazy as that's, they could keep getting better as the season goes on, and that's scary.
For a guy that had Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback for his career and has had already incredible seasons, Tyreek Hill is having maybe a career year. I referenced him on pace for 2,000 yards. The touchdowns may not be there yet. They'll come just because he's just a dynamic playmaker. But again, the inside, the toughness, the third down conversions, the tough plays on the sidelines, the jump balls, the 50-50 balls, the contested catches. Those are things that I wasn't ready to see Tyreek Hill do. I thought it was just, hey, get Hill in space and let him be a playmaker. He is so much more than that. And if it's one of the rare times that you get a star player, right, and yet he exceeds your expectations, even though your expectations were high. It's not like I didn't think that Hill was going to struggle here because obviously Tua's health was the key, but Tua was out there, as you pointed out. But the season they're having really is, Clay, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. If it was that easy, then everybody would be having these kind of numbers. And you look, there are really talented duos around the NFL of receivers. There are obviously star quarterbacks. I mean, you see Josh Allen and Mahomes himself. But to see what this trio, and in particular the duo of Waddle and Hill, is doing has been phenomenal. So the Dolphins offense hasn't been a concern. I think scoring points is still, look, the Lions are bad. I think if there's one thing, that the penalties were awful. I mean, awful in that game. Penalties were, and that is a concern. Yes, that's a concern. I think getting into the end zone and finishing drives is something that when you look at the Dolphins yardage wise, they've been very good all year. Finishing drives, they had it. They obviously, that wasn't an issue against Detroit. Was it because the Lions stink? I don't know. I think those are things as they play better opponents eventually, as these next few games go by, they're going to have to finish drives. But I think if you look at it, aside from the penalties, are you concerned with the Dolphins defense? There have been too many occasions against quality offenses where this defense just looks lost. And even last week against a rookie quarterback in big spots, they allowed some moments. Luckily, Pickett made enough mistakes and it wasn't pretty on Sunday night. I get that injuries are an issue, but the drop-off of Josh Boyer leading this defense this year in big moments in the game and situations, I give them credit for being better in the second half. And part of it is because the Lions are terrible and they kind of shot themselves in the foot. But I'm a little concerned. I'm a little concerned with the defense in big moments if they can make big stops against quality opponents.
Yeah, and there are levels to this. So concern, absolutely. I'm concerned that the groin injury is really hampering Xavier Howard. He doesn't look like the Xavier Howard that we're used to seeing. And look, when you're not 100%, that's going to happen. And unfortunately, that's magnified because of the rest of the issues in the defensive backfield and so many guys that have been hurt. So yes, I'm concerned. I'm less concerned because I'm hoping that it gets fixed once hopefully Xavier Howard can get healthier. Hopefully you eventually get Byron Jones back. And then some of these guys you've been mixing and matching, you can have a little bit of more continuity back there. The one thing in the NFL, Will, that you notice more and more is when secondary guys are out and you're mixing and matching there, it leads to busted coverages. And it's really difficult. Yeah. You give up big plays, explosives. And so I guess that's why I'm not pushing the panic button yet. So concern, yes, not pushing the panic button yet on this defense. And I will say this too, as far as the Lions go, their offense, heading into the weekend, they had the fourth best total offense in the NFL. And that was even with the last couple of games having some key guys out that they got.
Yeah, well, they didn't score. Yeah, they didn't score the last two games. I mean, they weren't scoring points the last two games.
So, and they got guys back that were a big part of how they jumped out to that early cushion as far as the yardage goes offensively. So, like, it's not that Detroit's actually a decent offensive team when they've got all their pieces. So it's not like you gave this many points and this much yardage up to an incompetent offense, and yet it's a continuation of some of the issues that we've seen. It's especially in the defensive backfield with all the injuries, you're having some miscommunication, you're missing plays, and that's my concern. I will say this: I don't think the play that Duke Riley made in the fourth quarter is getting enough credit because it didn't count. And, if you go back,
but it could have counted if he doesn't make that play.
He makes the play, and because Christian Wilkins lined up off sides, it was, the tackle didn't count. But it was a play that may have been a touchdown the other way for Detroit if Duke Riley doesn't come out of nowhere and make a huge play. And so the one thing I will say for this defense, and you go back to last week with the pick by Javon Holland, the pick by Noah Igbenogany, even though he got
opportunistic at those moments,
they have made the big plays in the big moments, and that's being a Giants fan, you've seen them make so many plays this year, like in tight spots. I like that I'm seeing they're finding ways to win and coming through when it counts. So that's why I'm not hitting the panic button yet. But yes, absolutely concerned, and I'm really hoping these guys can get back healthy.
I think pass rush will help a lot of the problems, because you say, okay, what does pass rush have to do with injured secondary questions there? Well, I mean, it saves you time of having to cover guys. And if you don't, especially early in the game with Goff on Sunday, there was just no pressure. And I think a big part of his success, and a couple of times he got the ball out quickly, but there were times where he was just in the back, in that pocket looking around, and he had guys running all over the field. And with time, again, I go back to NFL quarterbacks with wide open receivers. Even Jared Goff, with all the struggles he's had, is going to find open guys, especially with time, and hit those receivers as he did in the first half. But look, they pitched a shutout in the second half. I give them credit for bouncing back in that sense. I think the pass rush, Jaylen Phillips is getting so close. Yeah. You look at the numbers, the sack numbers, and they're not there. And you say to yourself, okay, so regression is after that incredible rookie season. No. And I don't think so at all. I think he's getting there. He's getting to the quarterback. He's flustering and impacting plays. by getting there. He's just not able to finish yet. And part of that is just the way the NFL works and play football works. Sometimes it just doesn't, you don't have the luck where it happens that you make the sack, but you're still impacting the game in a positive way. Jalen Phillips continues to get better and better. And I think the sacks will come eventually. I wouldn't be surprised if it's over the next few weeks, starting in Chicago next week. So, Clay, the Dolphins at 5-3, the schedule again at a lighter point where you would expect them to keep winning. And I think the message right now is what we've said all along. Keep Tua upright. Keep him healthy. The slide was maybe the most beautiful play of that victory. Keep on sliding, Tua. Keep protecting yourself. Right? You also reference a panic. So I want to hit this with the Heat. Is it panic time for the Miami Heat? 7 games into the season at 2-5, they go to Portland, they win. You think, okay, all is well. Then they lose a game in which they were right in it with Golden State in the final 3 minutes, and then Steph went nuts. But then they lay an absolute egg against the Kings on Saturday, a team that had been winless. And now at 2-5, coming back home with Golden State staring them right in the face, and this team right now not looking at all comfortable. Clay, do you have your finger on the panic button ready to hit it?
No, because it's the NBA. I mean, I can't get worked up. Now, I will say this, because I made this comment on Twitter, and I had people responding to me, oh, we can't panic yet. I think Tyler Hero needs to go back to the bench, and I think you need to start Max Strus. And to me, that's not panicking.
But you remember, why is that not panicking if it's such a big move where the offseason was catered to bringing Tyler into that lineup?
Because you're recognizing that the way this roster is constructed, you fixed what wasn't broken last year. And so to me, look, the starting lineup, when you've got Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo, immediately, that's 3 players who offensively need the ball in their hands to a certain extent. And so, and Bam, look, he affects the game so many ways, even without the ball in his hands. But, man, you still want to find a way to get the ball in his hands. Tyler Hero cannot be effective without the ball in his hands, period. So Max Strus, on the other hand, can. Max Strus is a fantastic catch-and-shoot guy, moves around, finds spots, spaces the floor, and can open up stuff for Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. And then when you have the bench unit, which does not have Victor Oladipo right now, you badly need somebody coming off the bench who's ball dominant. And like, you put Tyler Hero out there with Gabe Vincent, Duncan Robinson, and then whoever you want to play at the backup 4/5, you need to have somebody who has the ball in his hands, because Duncan Robinson's not going to be your ball-dominant guy. He's going to be catch and shoot. Max Strus is not a ball-dominant guy. That's why I want him in the starting lineup. Gabe Vincent can take the ball up the floor, but he's much better offensively, catch and shoot. I want to see the guys in places where they can thrive. And here's the thing, Will. I'm not talking about playing Tyler Hero fewer minutes. He's already playing the same number of minutes.
Yeah, he's going to get regardless.
Last year, and he's scoring fewer points per game. The fit is not right. That's not panicking. It's looking at the lineup and saying, you know what? What got us to the Eastern Conference Finals and one shot away from the NBA Finals last year? It wasn't broken. So let's go back to that, because it was working well. And oh, by the way, Tyler Hero can still show the type of progression and be great coming off the bench and be even a better scorer than he was last year.
It's a good argument. I think it's a good point you make. I think that you're backing it up, obviously, with things that are going on. I don't think you're just taking a shot in the dark there. I agree that there are some concerns there. But when I look at this team, and that to me isn't the priority of, and by the way, I agree with you, there is no reason to panic. There should be no reason to panic ever in 7 games. There shouldn't be an NBA team panicking right now. I mean, 7 games into the season.
Except the Lakers.
Yeah, well, the Lakers, I wouldn't call it panic, because if you didn't see that coming, then you weren't paying attention. I mean, but you're right. Maybe that's the one team I could give a pass to panicking, or a fan base. But I, of course, I'm not panicking, but I will say this. Concern is not panic, but there's reason to be concerned. And I think what you just referenced, again, is a good point. I think there's some validity to it. I understand why you're saying that. I don't agree with you in the sense that he needs to change. I still think Tyler should be in the lineup, the starting lineup at this point. But the 2 things that bother me are something Eric Spoelstra said after the loss to the Kings, that we know what's going on, and we see the lack of concentration, effort, energy, communication in certain moments. And we just know we got to get back to it. And my point is, well, why are you there in the first place?
Yeah.
I mean, why is a veteran team that, as you mentioned, was a shot from the NBA Finals, and the whole run it back is supposed to be about comfort with each other? No matter if there's a few certain new roles, don't give me this where we are communicating and the effort and energy. The Kings are going to out effort you. Is that really what we're doing here? And I understand. By the way, I agree with Eric Spoelstra, because as I watch the game, I'm thinking to myself, what the heck is this team doing?
Mm-hmm.
Why does there need to be a switch turned on in the second half after falling behind by 22? This team's too good and built with this continuity to do things like that. And I think from a basketball perspective, Clay, I think above Tyler Hero, the concern for me is the concern that I think a lot of Heat fans, and I'm sure in the front office probably were worried about as well, is the size. The rebounding, the size, the backup to Bam. Look, Nikola Jovic, I think, is going to be a fine NBA player, maybe even a damn good NBA player in time. He's not ready to be a backup big to Bam Adebayo. I mean, you could get him in spurts and in matchups. Dwayne Dedmon has, at this point, you look 2 years ago was as a godsend, right?
Yeah.
Then last year wasn't as good, but still effective. This year through 7 games, I think you could see that you've kind of reached your max on what you can expect from Dwayne Dedmon as your backup big. Omer Yurtseven is not healthy right now. He's a rebounding machine when he is. I'm still concerned about what he could bring you offensively, though. And also, he's not a fast guy, a quick guy. I think teams can take him offensively, go to him. I'm not sure his defense is there. Sure, he's a biggie who can get you rebounding. And then Caleb Martin, who is phenomenal, I think, so talented and athletic. It's hard to expect for him for 82 games to bang with these fours and these big guys and be that effective when you're putting it all on him. I guess what I'm trying to say with a lot of words, Clay, is I think if anything, the first 2 weeks of the season and 7 games has taught me is that the Heat are going to have to make a move to get another body. And that doesn't mean the old conversations of getting a Bradley Beal and getting these star players. No. Getting a big, getting a 4, getting a rebounder, getting an enforcer. The Heat need that, because whatever PJ Tucker was and whatever Dwayne Dedmon was 2 years ago, whatever Jay Crowder was 3 years ago, they are missing that right now.
Well, and Kevin Durant's a 4 if he's.
That's all I'm saying. Just go get KD. The Nets are a mess.
I'm just saying. No, I and I think the types of names that you're going to hear as we get closer to the trade down, and again, you're in a weird spot.
I mean, you may hear Jay Crowder again.
Yeah, but I mean, Jay Crowder's one. I mean, you're going to hear names like Mo Bamba. I mean, what about a Miles Turner? I mean, we see him in Indiana.
Oh, Miles Turner's, I like Miles Turner. He's always been an effective shot blocker, obviously.
There are going to be players out there that aren't going to cost you the world that you can make a run for. And again, there's a certain moratorium from when guys signed extensions or agreed to extensions that when they can be traded, it's closer to the trade deadline. So a lot of these moves aren't going to be made before the end of the calendar year, but your options are going to open up at that point. And I agree with you. I think they need size. I think there are a couple of things that are at play here. And I guess what I'm seeing is whatever the rotation is right now, whether it's that you need to add a big man, whether it's bringing Tyler Hero back off the bench, this rotation, I agree with Spoelstra that the effort isn't there, but I also don't think that's the only problem.
No, it's not. It's not. It bothers me, but it's not the only problem.
Yeah, because I mean, the first 2 games of the year, I don't think that was a team that wasn't trying. I think the effort was okay, and yet you were still losing games. So
yeah, but you get tired, Clay, though, of hearing even 7 games in we know what we're doing wrong. We just have to fix it. Well, then fix it. You guys are veterans that have been together for a while. And even Spo said, we're not panicking. To answer his question, he said, we're not panicking, but we don't want this to go on much longer. You don't want to dig yourself too big of a hole. I mean, that's just the way it is, the reality of a long NBA season.
Well, I do, and I go back to what you said, then why are you not fixing it?
Fix it. Get back to your identity.
You watched the first half in Sacramento. That team looked like a team that didn't care. And then they came out in third quarter, and they looked like they cared a lot. But by that point, they're down 22 points. And
it takes a lot of energy.
Then you get to the fourth quarter, and it's close, and Kevin Huerter's still on fire from the first half. And so it's like you can't come out with a lack of effort. If the first half is important effort-wise, because if you let the opposing team get into a rhythm, well, then even when the effort level starts to ramp up, those guys have already seen the ball go through the basket a lot. And so, hey, when it gets to winning time, they're in a rhythm and they feel good about themselves. Whereas if you come out early and you impose your will, which I thought we saw them do against the Raptors, and I thought we saw them do against Portland.
And Portland was a perfect example.
You have to play like that. And this team, I'm going to end it with this, Will. I still think this team is good. This team is not good enough to coast. They don't have the talent to coast.
Especially not in the East with the Hawks and Cavs and teams like that improving. No, you can't.
No. So this team is built on toughness, culture, outworking, toughest, best condition, blah, blah, blah. That don't mean anything if you roll up and you just don't try. Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, there have been some games this year where the effort level hasn't been there, and it wipes away whatever the toughness, intensity, and all that you have when you're in practice.
Yeah, I'll just finish with this. There's too much of this going on. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll be fine.
Gotta see it.
Be fine then. Be fine. Stop with the "we'll be fine." Be fine already. And look, coming back home, 6 of the next 7 as we tape, 6 of the next 7 at home. The schedule does lighten up a bit after this Golden State game that they've got on Tuesday. Home cooking hopefully gets them going. I'm not panicking. I don't think Heat fans should, but there are things, as we just discussed, that I think you got to monitor over the next month or so to make sure that they kind of get things back on track. All right, we get back on track next week. Another Miami Sports Pod. Dolphins head to Chicago. We'll see how the Heat do this week. Always appreciate listening, subscribing. You can always find us at local10.com.